Next, I want to talk about the pressure monitor wells for a bit. We've only got a handful of pressure monitor wells. These are wells that are not flared. You can't tell what's going on in the formation if you're flaring the well because the pressure in the well is controlled by the choke, which is just a big needle valve that controls how much gas can flow out. And you can't really tell what's going on in the formation with an active vent well. And so Texas Brine has installed a few pressure monitor wells. I've circled them all here. There are none in the community, even though the original plan called for installing pressure monitor wells in the community. Texas Brine chose to not do that. They want to go with the CPTs. That's still being debated. But these are the pressure monitor wells. 5 of those have pressure. 1 pressure monitor well 8 never developed any pressure. That's just south of the community right there. That never developed any pressure. The rest of them all developed pressure. So next.
How deep are those wells? The pressure?
These wells are right at the top of the MRA. They range from about 110 feet to top of screen to probably 125 feet top of screen. Here's what's going on. BC2 we've talked about, that's the red line. And it was trending down until it started having seal problems and other issues with regard to the test. The use of that well right now is questionable. After they fixed the leaks the last time, the pressure's never built back up. It has leaked around the casing, it's leaked around the seals. Anyway, this is the graph up until it started leaking, and you can see the red line is trending down. And that's good. That's what you would expect if your vent well is having a good positive effect. And I think the BC2 downward trend was probably related to the success of ORW 36, right there on Dennis's property. If you look at that and look at this trend, that's pretty consistent.
Pretty far radius of influence.
Yeah, but I think what's happened is that well kept the gas from moving up there. Rather than pull all that gas back, I think there was gas moving up there because last year we saw a lot of bubbling up there. We had bubbling in people's yards. We had bubbling in the pond behind people's house. And I think ORW 36, if you look at the local radius of influence, it's not so much it pulled that gas out, it kept more gas from coming in. That's what it looks like it's doing. So that's the good news. The not so good news are the other vent wells, pressure monitor wells 16, 18, and 19. The lines are either flat or in the case of 19, it's actually crept up a bit. So that when we say the pressure in the MRA is about what it was when it started, this is the hardest, best data we've got to show that that is in fact the case. And 2 of these, pressure monitor well 18, which is on the west side of Bayou Corn, and pressure monitor well 19, which is north of Highway 70, is on the Dugal LeBlanc property, right there where the flare is, right by the road. Those are 50 feet from vent wells. And the pressure is holding constant. So, the other thing is, and this is why we suspect we may be getting recharge, is pressure monitor well TBC3. For the first year it was installed, it had 0 pressure. No wellhead pressure at all. Late last September, just before the big earthquake swarm that started in October, the pressure started going up. And it went up over a period of about 3 months. It got up to about 50 psi, and you can see for yourself it stayed there ever since. So you took a pressure monitor well. TBC3 is over on the Texas Brine property near Oxy 1 cavern. That's where it is. So it's halfway from the facility up to the main road. to get this kind of pressure increase in that area, some more gas has to come in from somewhere. Can't just magically make it do that. So this gas is coming from somewhere, whether it's coming horizontally or it's coming vertically through the disturbed rock zone. At this point, I don't know, but the gas has to come from somewhere to get that kind of pressure increase. I didn't bring all the graphs tonight because it gets a little confusing, but up on the Dugal Blanc property where we first started venting in November of 2012, a number of those wells, the pressures went down almost to zero, and then about the same time this started, TBC3 started creeping up, the pressure in some of those wells also started creeping up, which indicates there may have been gas coming in from somewhere. So that's why we don't want to give you a number if we still think we've got gas coming in, and that's one of the things we're still evaluating. Okay, I wish I had a better answer than that, but I don't.
Is that something that Don Mullen could
Well,
investigate?
Don identified the source, he identified a source at about 1,500 feet that he saw in the 3D seismic. And that may well be some of what's going on here. That may be a source. The other thing it may be, we may, in the two big seismic events that we had last year, one in October and then the one that started in December, may have freed up some of the gas that's trapped right up against the dome that they couldn't image with the 3D seismic. So right now we're still working the problem. There's indication we do have gas coming in now, or at least back then, 3 or 4 months ago, and we still have to look at it. We pulled isotopic data on all this stuff. We're getting all the data we can to be able to help answer that question.
If at some point DNR becomes convinced that deeper gas is the problem, is DNR going to consider ordering Texas Brine to go after that deeper gas?
That would be part of what we consider, because the order is for them to abate the gas.
So that's a possibility.
If it's something that, what it would depend on is, do we have something isolated enough that we could say there's a target that can be hit? Or is it a case of we need something to basically cut the gas off at the pass before it reaches the community? But that'd be speculation at this point, unless that's a source is nailed down. We see that it's something that either is continuously feeding or has the potential to do so, or is it something that those last 2 big bumps we had in October and December, they let something loose and now that's done? And that's what we're trying to figure out right now. Is it something that's continuously being fed, or did we just get a couple more kicks?
And one of the pressure monitor wells I showed you up here is pressure monitor well 16, which is close to the Oxy 3 cavern, and that has the highest pressure of any of the pressure monitor wells, obviously. And so that's a good data point for us to work this. It's right there where the Geophone 1 well was drilled. It's on the same pad. So I want to explain to you in cartoon fashion why you can have a lot of gas coming out of vent wells, but you don't see any pressure decrease. When you first start venting an ORW, you have essentially a constant gas thickness. It varies a little bit. Let's pretend it's constant. As you vent the gas, what happens next is that the water in the MRA comes up to displace the gas. So as the gas pressure decreases around an ORW, the water comes up and fills it in below. The radius of influence where you see pressure decrease is called the radius of influence. And that's where you've removed enough gas that you can't affect the gas pressure, which is the goal. You need to get rid of the gas pressure. It's not so much a volume It's the pressure that's given the problem. That's what's causing the bubble sides, that's what's causing it to move through the aquitard, that's the problem. If the pressure monitor well is outside the radius of influence, it's not going to feel much of that pressure effect. In other words, the pressure is going to stay constant. So even if you totally deplete an ORW, you vent it down and it waters in and there's no more gas coming out, the key thing to determine is it safe and have you mitigated the problem is a static pressure monitor well, not the vent wells. Because the vent wells right now, we've seen over and over, I can take those vent wells down to where they make nothing. All I have to do is open the choke. And the water comes in so fast the gas can't come out. That's all you have to do. But the key thing is what's going on between the vent wells. And that's what the pressure monitor wells are intended to do, and that's what Texas Brine proposes to do with the repeat CPTs and MIHPTs. So the key thing is not what goes on after the vent well itself, but between the vent wells. That's when you know you've either removed enough gas for it to safe or you have not removed enough gas for it to safe. Next.